The Nanda Devi Peak stands as the centerpiece of a vast glacial basin, surrounded by a near-impassable ring of high mountain ridges. This geological fortress has dictated the region's ecology for centuries, shielding the inner sanctuary from human exploration until the mid-20th century. Living within these walls is the Alpine Musk Deer, a creature defined by strange evolutionary departures. They lack antlers entirely, and the males instead grow elongated, downward-pointing upper canines that resemble fangs, which they use during territorial disputes. Their bodies are engineered for the steep, low-visibility environment of the high Himalayas. They have oversized hair-like ears to detect predators in thick brush, and hind legs significantly longer than their front legs, allowing for a bounding gait suited for vertical terrain. These specialized traits are biological trade-offs. While they make the musk deer masters of the high-altitude forest, they also tie the species' survival to the continued existence of a very specific type of mountain architecture. This diagram shows a topographical cross-section of the range. Despite the reserve's massive size, the musk deer can only sustain optimal populations within a rigid horizontal band between 3,000 and 3,500 meters. This specific altitude provides the necessary mosaic landscape. It requires a mix of rhododendron and Himalayan birch forests, where the deer spend their daylight hours concealed from predators. Foraging occurs at night, when the deer move from the dense forest into the adjacent alpine meadows to find arboreal and terrestrial lichens. Top-tier predators like snow leopards and yellow-throated martens exert constant pressure on the deer. This forces them to maintain a perfect balance between open foraging ground and the safety of the dense thickets. Because the deer's existence is entirely dictated by this fragile microhabitat, even minor shifts in the mountain's physical geography can become existential threats. In the high Himalayas, accelerated global warming and glacial recession are driving a massive biome shift. This elevation chart illustrates rising temperatures, allowing woody shrubs to climb higher into pure alpine meadows. As these species invade, they outcompete the delicate plants and terrestrial lichens the musk deer relies on. The lichen-rich foraging grounds are erased from the bottom up. Compounding this is a climate paradox: harsher, heavier winter snowpacks at high altitudes. This deep snow buries whatever food remains, forcing the deer to descend into the lower, depleted zones where the woody invasion has already begun. Climate change is physically erasing the deer's territory, creating a vertical squeeze that leaves the population with nowhere to turn. While climate compresses the habitat vertically, human activity fractures it laterally. Livestock grazing and infrastructure projects in the buffer zones cut through the remaining forest. Musk deer are highly sensitive to these disturbances. They actively avoid human noise and areas used by cattle, which forces them to retreat into isolated, marginalized pockets of the landscape. Within these fragments, the deer must compete for limited resources against hardier species, like the Himalayan tahr, which can often outlast the more specialized musk deer in degraded environments. This isolation makes them vulnerable to the most immediate threat: commercial poaching. The male's muskpot has an immense black market value in traditional medicine and luxury perfumery, driving organized syndicates into the reserve. Poachers exploit the deer's shrinking range by placing wire snare traps along the few traversable paths that remain. As their territory fragments, the deer's movements become more predictable and confined. By forcing the population into smaller land pockets, habitat loss funnels the deer directly toward the snare traps waiting in the few remaining corridors. In 1983, the government attempted to protect the core of the reserve by implementing an absolute ban on human entry. This was the fortress conservation model, designed to lock the ecosystem away from outside influence. However, static defenses cannot stop warming temperatures, invasive plants, or mobile poaching networks. A simple border drawn on a map cannot prevent a wire snare from snapping shut in the underbrush. The Alpine Musk Deer is a keystone indicator. Its disappearance signals the structural decline of the entire high-altitude forest network, proving that passive protection is no longer enough. Preserving the biosphere requires dynamic, active intervention that looks beyond the bureaucratic fences of the national park. Effective conservation now involves shifting management power directly to the indigenous Bhotia communities. These residents possess centuries of generational knowledge regarding the buffer zones and the wildlife within them. New strategies prioritize funding for community-led anti-poaching patrols and transitioning local economies toward heavily regulated, community-based ecotourism. Additionally, modern agrotechnology allows for the cultivation of high-value medicinal plants on private farms. This intentionally undercuts the illicit wild harvesting networks that currently threaten the alpine meadows. The future of the Nanda Devi ecosystem depends on fostering a symbiotic, financially viable coexistence. Securing the musk deer's habitat requires the active economic participation of the mountain communities living on its edge.